Hello, my name is Leilani. I'm 21 and I live in Melbourne, Victoria. I'm the youngest of 4 kids and I come from a very loving musical family. Growing up, we were surrounded by a lot of music, singing, dancing, performing, and that sort of shaped me into the person that I am today, who is very passionate about the arts. I have a beautiful, loving partner. We've been together for 4 years now. We met in high school. I work full-time in the tax industry doing administration. I have a few years experience doing this and it is something that I enjoy because I know what I'm doing, so I feel pretty confident, and I work with some amazing people. Before eczema and my skin condition sort of took over my life, I was someone who loved to keep myself busy. Dancing and singing are 2 things that mean so much to me and are such huge parts of my life, and I was always filling my spare time with those activities. Growing up surrounded by such a strong musical influence from my parents and from other family members, I wanted to expand my knowledge and my skills. In high school, I wanted to learn how to play the bass, so my dad taught me how to play. He got me my first bass, and from there we joined a family band and we're doing gigs at restaurants and different pubs. I played bass in school in a school band that we had. It was just a couple of friends. Really enjoyable memories, just jamming and connecting through music. When I was about 12, I discovered K-pop and just immediately fell in love with the dancing, the singing, the music, and from there I decided that I wanted to become a dancer and learn how to dance. Since then, I was very lucky enough to be able to fly to South Korea on 3 separate occasions to attend a boot camp where we trained in music. We met industry professionals. Some of them are behind some of the biggest K-pop acts in the industry at the moment. And through that, I also made some amazing friends, both in Australia and outside of Australia. These experiences were really tough, but it taught me so much and really improved me as a dancer and a singer, improved my confidence, and I just felt like it was stepping stones in the direction that I wanted to go, and I wanted to do music and dance as a career profession. In 2023, I created a K-pop dance cover group that was based in Brisbane. Originally, I'm from Queensland. And I got a few friends together, and just from there we started doing K-pop projects, dance covers, performances, and every week we were meeting up to rehearse and just bond over this shared love for K-pop that we had. Obviously now my life is very different. I can't really do those things anymore, at least now. And a big part of that is because of my skin. I had eczema as a child. It was never crazy severe. I really just had it sort of in the creases of my elbows, behind my knees, and on my hips. Those are the spots that I remember. And I have some really fond memories of my mum just taking care of me growing up and, you know, applying cream on it, ice packs. But I want to say when I was about 9 or 10, I grew out of it. It just sort of went away. We knew that it was eczema. My parents both had eczema growing up, and my siblings have had run-ins with it as well. It was definitely not foreign to us. So we knew that it was eczema. It presented like eczema, it felt like eczema. Because I was so young, I don't really have many memories of feeling like insecure about it. I think the main feelings that I remember was just having to try and deal with the pain and the itch, which was not enjoyable at all. As I got older, I lived quite a few years with clear skin. I didn't really have any issues. As I went through puberty and got into high school, I did have like issues with acne, but it wasn't until I was in year 12, so this was 2022, that I had a really random face flare. Seeing my GP, they diagnosed it as dermatitis, It was very red, it was very fiery, it was very angry, but it was just on my face. Obviously, being in my last year of high school, this was pretty difficult to deal with. I felt really insecure about it. It wasn't how I imagined my last year being. I imagined it sort of enjoying it with my friends and like looking forward to formal, and obviously at that age a lot of young girls really care about their appearance, so having to go to school with such a red face and also dealing with the pain, I felt really insecure. Some days I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to be seen as like the gross girl with the bad skin, and I didn't even want to get into conversations with people about what it was or why I have it, because I didn't know. I also suffered with quite bad dandruff at the time. Whether they were connected, I'm not sure. Being a teenage girl, I was also really into makeup, and not being able to wear it because of my skin was really hard. I also worked in retail, so I would have to speak to customers, and I just felt really insecure. I used to wear glasses to try and cover my face. It was really tough at that time. It was really tough. This was also the year that I met my partner, and I think one thing that meant a lot to me was that was sort of the very start of this journey that I'm going through, and it didn't change how he felt about me at all. He probably knew me for like 2 months, maybe 1 month before the flare started, so I felt sad that most of the time that we knew each other I was going through this, because I just felt like it's not me, it's not who I am really. It's just something that I am living with. My GP at the time prescribed me topical steroids, and I used this within their guidance. I'm pretty sure it was Alidel or Elidel and hydrocortisone. Those were the two that I had been given to use for my face, and towards the end of 2022, early 2023, it cleared up and I didn't have any issues with my skin until the end of 2024. So in the end of 2024, I started to notice discoloration on my back. It was sort of yellowy purple. I didn't know if it was bruises, but as time went on, it slowly turned into what looked like eczema. And from there, other spots started coming up on my arms, my legs, my chest, and it just started to spread. Seeing my GP again, he did give me the topical steroids and also oral steroids. I was taking prednisolone for, it was probably 5 days at a time to calm the flare, and that would give me maybe a few weeks of relief, but it always came back. And it got to a point where he actually referred me to a public dermatologist in my local hospital, and I was put on a wait list for maybe somewhere between 3 and 6 months, and in that time I was just using the steroids as I was advised to. When I finally saw the dermatologist, he confirmed to me that it was eczema, so I was then diagnosed by a specialist. And the first treatment that he put me on was a sorbolene moisturizer mixed with some sort of crushed pill. I cannot for the life of me remember what it was, but I just remember it was something that the pharmacy had to make, and it was just very granulated moisturizer. I had to apply that to the affected areas 3 times a day. And this stung. This cream stung so bad, and I just remember I was working full-time in an office environment, still doing admin, and I would have to go into the bathroom on my lunch break and apply it, which one was difficult because some of the spots were on my back, so it was quite hard to reach. And the second thing that made it hard was it burned so bad, so I would have to apply it, sit there and just let it sting and just try and wait for it to calm down, and then once it was calm, then I'd be able to get changed and go back to work. This was really hard. I probably did this for about 3 weeks, and when I ran out of the cream, or almost ran out of the cream, I went back and saw the same pharmacist that made the mix, and I just said to them, like, I've been using the mix for a few weeks now. It stings so terribly bad every time that I apply it. Is this something that I should be experiencing? And the pharmacist said, no, if it's causing me any sort of discomfort or pain, I should stop it immediately and speak to my specialist again. Now, because I was going through the public health system, there was no quick way to get in contact with the specialist. And I was really nervous about going a certain amount of time without any sort of medication or anything to give me relief. So that pharmacist actually said that he will reach out to my dermatologist and explain to them what happened and that they've advised me to stop using it. It was probably a few months before I saw my dermatologist again. I think in that time I was just using moisturizer, which stung as well. My skin was so sensitive, like anything that I put on it, it didn't like it. My face was super flaky, so I felt like anytime that I would put anything on my face, it would just reject it and it would flake even more, like it's just all coming off. When I finally saw my dermatologist again, I told him about what happened with the cream, and he actually didn't hear from that pharmacist at all. So whether or not there was any communication, like he said, I don't know. So that was a little bit disappointing. But from there, we moved to a different treatment and he put me onto UVB light therapy. So my dermatologist had his own clinic and he had a machine there that provided the UVB therapy services. So I would go to his clinic 2 to 3 times a week, and I remember being so scared because I didn't know what to expect. The first time that I went into the clinic, I was shown the machine, and basically it's just like, at least this is what his looked like. It was sort of like 2 curved doors with the panels on the inside, and they had wheels on the bottom of the doors, and it was connected at the back by a hinge. So you would walk inside and then you could hold the handles and close it around you so that you were fully surrounded by the panels. And once it's closed, the staff member would come in, turn the machine on, and then you start the treatment. So I was given some black goggles and I had to wear these to protect my eyes from the rays. And because my eczema was so widespread, I literally had to strip off completely, which made me more nervous because I was obviously in a very vulnerable state, stepping into a machine that I have really no idea how it works, or, you know, you do your research, but it doesn't really calm you down until after you've done it and you know everything's okay. So anyway, I did that. I went into the machine, had my goggles on, and they turned it on. And this treatment they do in intervals. So you start off very short, 15 seconds, and then each session after that they increase it by 10 to 15 seconds depending on how you respond to the treatment. So I started at 15 seconds, and by the time, like towards the end of this treatment plan, I was probably doing it for 2 to 3 months. I think I got up to maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and you just sort of stand there in the machine while it does its thing. One thing that I do remember is it smelled like hot chips. Once I went back to my dermatologist, we just weren't seeing results and nothing was changing. My skin was continuing to spread and I wasn't finding any relief. Around this time as well, I was working at a different job, but it was still an office environment, and I was starting to get to the point where my skin was getting so bad that there were clothes that I was unable to wear. Like, I could only really wear baggy clothes that wasn't too tight or restrictive on my skin because it wouldn't irritate me or, you know, be painful. And this was really difficult because obviously when you're working in an office environment, you want to dress well, you need to dress well. But thankfully my employers were very understanding, and there were some days that I rocked up to work in baggy pants and a baggy t-shirt, and some other days I had to wrap my arms because they would be weeping and raw. So it was definitely a painful experience. Going back to my dermatologist, we decided, yep, this treatment is not working. So we were going to move to the next step, and the next step was Biologics, and that was Dupixent. All the way leading up until this point, I found it really difficult to try and stay positive. I was doing all of these treatments, I was seeing the specialist, but just knowing that it would be so long between appointments that I would see him. There were times that I actually emailed his clinic directly to say like, hey, like I need help, like whatever we're doing now is not working. And you know, they would tell me that they've printed my email, put it on his desk, but I wouldn't hear anything. And going through the public health system, you expect those long waits, and my dermatologist was very sought after. He was a very busy man. He had a lot of patients, so even just trying to find a time to see him was going to be difficult anyway, because he was needing to see so many people. Once he told me about Dupixent, I was very nervous. Going from topical treatments to an injection is quite a big step, and I was really fearful that this condition was a lot bigger than I thought it was. He told me about the side effects, which was very minimal. Obviously, I did my own research and I had seen a lot on TikTok with people that have actually been on it. I was very lucky enough to know someone, there was a good friend of mine I used to work with who had been on Dupixent for a year at that point. So I had someone that I could talk to and ask questions, any questions that I would have. He had given me the script to start Dupixent, and I remember speaking to my mom and just saying like, I don't think I'm ready to start this. Like, this felt like a really big step, and once I started, I felt like there was not really any way that I could go back. So we decided that I was not going to go on it straight away, and I wanted to try other options before going on Dupixent. We went to a naturopath for a few months, didn't have a very good experience and didn't see any results. We also looked at my diet, what I was eating, what I was drinking, the materials of my clothes, where I was buying my clothes from, what I was washing my clothes in, perfumes, makeup, hair products, anything that would trigger me. I cleared all of it. We were constantly cleaning my room to clear it of dust, and we just weren't getting anywhere. When you feel like you're trying everything and nothing is working, it sort of forces you to think in more of a drastic way. And I just thought, maybe it's something in the air, maybe it's something in the water, maybe it's something here in Queensland that's triggering me, and the only way that I'm going to get away from it is if I move. So I spoke to my partner and my parents, and we decided that my partner and I were going to move down to Melbourne to change environment and see if it would make a difference. So we moved at the end of 2025, and I probably got my Dupixent script in the middle of 2025, so there was probably 6 months there that I hadn't taken it. We moved to Melbourne, and the plan was that we would move back to Queensland in December when we visit for Christmas if there's no change. But we loved it here, and we felt like we adjusted quite well to the move. We liked where we were living, the area, the people, and so we decided to stay. In terms of my skin, I didn't really see much of a difference. The one thing that I noticed was that the water felt a lot calmer, not as harsh on my skin, and so that was a positive. But we stayed, and my skin just continued to get worse and worse and worse. I didn't work for a few months, and I had gotten so bad that I wasn't sleeping anymore. I had lost mobility. I didn't recognize myself at all. Simple tasks like getting into bed, getting out of bed, pulling the covers over me, tying my hair up, brushing my hair, putting my shirt on, getting changed, all of these things I couldn't do, and I had to rely 1000% on my partner to just help me live. There were days that I couldn't eat because my skin around my mouth was so crusted and raw that I couldn't open my mouth very wide. There were days that I couldn't see because the skin around my eyes would be so crusted and raw that I wouldn't be able to open them. They'd be so inflamed. I just felt like I was a shell of a person, and I couldn't do anything without being in pain. Whether that was moving or not moving, most of the time I was in pain. My skin was burning, and it was just horrible. It was literally the worst feeling that anyone could ever feel in their whole entire life. And leading up to Christmas, I'm thinking there's no way that I can travel like this. And so in a spur of the moment decision, I called my mom and I said, maybe it's time that I go on this medication. Spoke to her for a bit and I called around to a few different chemists to see if they had the medication. Someone did, so same day I went and picked it up. Same day I went to a GP, and next thing I know, I'm sitting in the nurse's office with the nurse showing me how to administer Dupixent. This experience was very nerve-wracking for me, and I sort of needed to keep it fast-tracked, otherwise I would think about it too much and back out. So the initial doses of Dupixent, for me, I had to take 2 injections as my loading dose. So the nurse did the first one to teach me how to inject it, and then I did the second one, and fortnightly from there I would inject at home. And I just remember leaving the doctor's office that day after doing both injections, jumping into the car and just bursting into tears, because I was sort of like, it just felt surreal that it had gotten to this point and that I had actually started it, like that I pushed myself to do this. Once I started Dupixent, it did not take long at all for me to start to see results. Within a few days, I felt the itch calming, and then within a few weeks, my skin started to just flake and fall off, and underneath it had really smooth, soft, new skin. Within a month, I was clearing up really quickly, and I just felt so good. I was wearing clothes I haven't worn in so long. I was wearing makeup again. I had my independence back. I was able to shower without bursting into tears every single time because of the burn. And I just felt like things were getting back on track. I was getting my life back. I landed a really good job that I started in January, and I was just really excited to finally heal. Unfortunately, that didn't last long. At around the 2-month mark, I started to experience face flares and chest flares, and before I knew it, I was not getting any relief from the injections anymore. This was really hard because at the start, I was quite okay with doing the injections. I would feel a bit of anxiety and sometimes, I'd cry about it, but I always just got it done. Towards the end of it, I would be taking the injections and I would just feel a wave of fear and anxiety that would come over me when I needed to do it, because I was sort of thinking, well, I'm putting myself through mental and physical anguish to administer this drug, and afterwards I'm still in pain, I'm still living without relief. So it almost felt like, what was the point? I was just putting myself through more pain just to continue being in pain. Because I had moved, I was in the process of trying to get a new dermatologist, and once I saw my GP in Melbourne, they said that the wait time can be up to 9 months, and I'm just thinking, there's no way that I'm going to survive that long. So he was able to refer me to a private dermatologist, and I saw her pretty much the next few days. During this time, my skin was going through changes, and I wasn't sure if it was something to do with Dupixent that had changed my skin, but I noticed it was more flaky, there were plaques, the color looked different. And so when I finally saw my dermatologist here in Melbourne, she took one look at me and she said, "This looks like psoriasis." And I just sort of went, oh my gosh, what now? Like what a plot twist, I guess. Same day we did a biopsy, and on 3 different areas, and all 3 spots came back as psoriasis. We also did bloods, and the bloods showed a marker that was really high, and that marker, if it's high, is really only seen in people that have eczema. So we're thinking at that point, okay, I probably have some sort of mixture. Speaking to my dermatologist, she did tell me that Dupixent can cause psoriasis to develop, and so I came off of Dupixent and I went on to a psoriasis drug. Since then, that drug seemed to be healing me in the areas that really looked like psoriasis, but the areas that Dupixent had healed were coming back. So I definitely have both, and now I'm going on to something that is going to treat both, which is called Cyclosporine. In short, if this doesn't work, I think I will be coming off everything and going down the natural path again, and just hoping that I have a better experience than I did last time. When I came off of Dupixent, I was definitely way clearer than I was before I went on it. Even though I was experiencing these flares and I was still in pain, I knew for sure that it had cleared areas for me, and then it worked for a while. I don't think Dupixent is a terrible, horrible drug. I think it can work, and I'm just one of the unlucky people that it didn't fully work for. Do I regret going on it? No, because I feel like everything happens for a reason, and maybe I would have been in a worse off spot if I didn't go on it. I think by now I've sort of accepted that this is a journey that I have to walk, and some of the things that have been really difficult is obviously dealing with, you know, the self-love, being very insecure and self-conscious about my skin. When your skin is bad, it sort of pushes you in a space that just feels like you're trapped, you're helpless. There were so many times that I just felt stuck, and I was in a position where I was in so much pain, but there was nothing that I could take to give me relief. There was nothing I could do in the short term to help me that wouldn't affect me in the long term. Topical steroids is something that is a band-aid fix, and although it works, your skin will always come back, and in my experience it would come back worse. There's a lot of talk on social media about topical steroid withdrawal, which is something that I do think I have or am experiencing, and it's really good to spread awareness about it, because you go to your health professionals to help, and they're giving out something that can be really detrimental to your health. I'm hoping from now that this journey isn't too long and that I'm sort of coming to an end, but anyone that deals with eczema or psoriasis or topical steroid withdrawal or any skin condition knows that this is probably the most excruciating and difficult thing to deal with, both mentally and physically. And it's so good to see a social media presence about these conditions now. I've started posting on TikTok when I first started Dupixent because I wanted to be the person that I used to watch before I went on Dupixent to try and get help or advice on it before starting such a scary medication. And the community that I have created, the people that I've met, it's just been so amazing. So to anyone else that's dealing with these conditions, I really hope and pray that you find relief sooner than, you know, waiting around for some miracle to happen, because we all feel it. And I hope that, you know, over time the medical system will have some changes that actually can provide us with the help that we need. It's tough, but only the strongest people can go through this and make it through. So I really hope that everyone continues to stay strong and know that we have each other's backs, and we will get through it one way or another. So thank you for watching my story. I really appreciate you being here to hear what I've gone through, what I'm going through, and what so many people are going through. Thank you to Melissa for giving me this platform, and I am looking forward to the day where I can get back into dancing because I can move properly. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I wish you all the very best. Bye bye.